This issue is proving to cause quite a furore between the two countries, that's Kenya and Tanzania. So let's speak now, as we've been promising you this evening, to the president-elect of the Tanzanian Medical Association. That's Dr. Osati, who joins me now on phone from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Daktari, we thank you very much for speaking with us on Monday Night News here on KTN. Let's start with the simple one. Was your association consulted by the government before this decision was reached?
Hello?
Hello, Dr. Osati, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us on the bulletin tonight. My first question is, was your association consulted in any way before this decision was reached to send doctors to Kenya?
It is unfortunate that our association was not consulted on this issue of taking 500 doctors to Kenya. And actually, we expected our government and the officials to consult us, maybe to say something or to speak or to be there on behalf of doctors. Because the doctors who are supposed to go to Kenya are our members, so we are supposed to be involved too.
All right, so your association was not involved. Let me ask you this then. Do you think Tanzania can afford to send doctors to Kenya? Taking a look at the numbers and the doctor to patient ratio in your country versus what is happening here, can Tanzania afford to let go of 500 doctors and lend them to Kenya?
Actually, as we are speaking, we have a very severe shortage of doctors. As according to the WHO report, we have one doctor to 25,000 to 30,000 ratio, as you compare to Kenya, which is one doctor to 70,000. And according to the report here of the big result now in Tanzania, the report showed that we have 13 regions which have very severe shortage of doctors. And in other places, the shortage is ranging from 49 to 52, and even in remote areas, it ranges up to 75% of shortage. So we could think our government could have done something for Tanzanian doctors to work in Tanzania. But the government is saying that the wage bill is very high and they cannot employ more. But we think there is still a way that the government can create job opportunity for our Tanzanians. If you take in mind that these doctors are trained by the government and there is a government money and the public money, we would think that these doctors could have been employed in Tanzania so that they can work here, because we have still a very big demand.
Right. Okay, Daktari, in the statement that you sent to newsrooms in your country, you have asked for this arrangement to be suspended. Are you confident that the government will listen to your plea? And what happens if this is not suspended? What will your association do then?
Can you say it again?
You have called for a suspension of this arrangement. Does the government pay heed to your association? And if the government goes ahead, despite your concerns and your request for rejection of this, or at least suspension, what are you prepared to do as an association?
Actually, we are not planning to confront the government, but we are just giving our views on this issue. As we understand that our fellow doctors in Kenya just ended the strike last week. And actually, the agreement has not yet been implemented. So we could think that this is a good opportunity for Tanzanian doctors, but we could think at least they can wait a bit, for a month or 2 months to see how things are going in Kenya. And because we have seen from our colleagues in Kenya that sometimes they refuse they are saying that they refuse to give their cooperation to our doctors. And we are also worried about the security of these doctors. So we are not saying that doctors we are not saying that doctors should not go, or we are saying that the government that they should not send doctors. But what we want is that our doctors, if they are going to Kenya, they go there and they know that where they're going to work and what's the security and all those issues.
Okay, all right. Dr. Osati, thank you for that. Just to clarify, you've talked about a hostile environment. What is the specific concern? This is something we've also heard from the opposition, Chadema, in Tanzania. What are your specific concerns with respect to security for these doctors should they come to Kenya?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Your specific concerns with respect to security for the Tanzanian doctors should they come into Kenya. Chadema has called it a hostile environment. You seem to be saying the same thing.
Yes, because our colleagues from Kenya just ended their strike, of which we know that. I mean, they fought a lot for what they believe was right for them, and we think this issue could wait for 2 months at least for the implementation of the agreement as started being taken, and those are things that give us worries, and as we see in social media when we communicate with some doctors in Kenya, so you can just see that. We don't want Tanzania doctors to come here because we have fought for this and they want to take it. So, yeah, it's skeptical in that way.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on Monday Night News. That's Dr. Osati, who's the president-elect of the Medical Association of Tanzania, speaking about the concerns for those 500 doctors who were supposed to come here, talking about the fact that the ink is barely dry on that agreement that was signed between doctors and government officials here in the country. So let's speak a little bit more about this with two gentlemen who have been at the center of this doctor's saga and, of course, have been at the center of getting that deal signed through. So I'm joined from Mombasa by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. of Makueni, and also from here in Nairobi by Philip Murgor, who's a presidential aspirant and was also lead counsel in that case. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Philip Murgor, I'd like to begin with you. You were lead counsel in this case that helped to seal a deal. What's your reaction to this development now?
From my perspective, both as a lawyer who is handling the matter and generally a leader, I cannot understand why the government, through the ministry, would continue to along this path of errors upon errors. I mean, it's amazing that the doctors from Tanzania have put it so well. We've hardly resolved the dispute between the doctors and the government. And the ink is hardly dry, as it has been very well put. And here we have this government going across the border, inviting 500 new entrants into the market and expecting them to be welcomed. There are some unresolved issues even in the return to work formula. I understand that the salaries for the period that they had been on strike are still being withheld. So the wounds are still fresh. You saw right on your television the strike at sometimes bordered on violence. There's a lot of pain still to be overcome. And it is no longer a matter of life and death. I would have expected this government to allow the return to work formula to be fully implemented, and thereafter ask the union themselves, consult with them and tell them we want to bring on board extra help, and after that, in a consultative manner, allow any other doctors, be they Tanzanians, be they anyone else, to come into this country.
All right, Philip, I'd like to just interject for a moment so that we can hear from Senator Mutula Kilonzo, who's in Mombasa County, and the two of you worked together on this. Senator, show of bad faith?
Yes, there are two words to describe the actions of government. One is bad faith, the other one is lack of consultation. Now, the most important aspect is that although it is agreed that the ratio of doctors to patients is wanting, the fact of the matter is that the cure is not going the way they have done it. The idea of getting expertise in common parlance is that you do not have that expertise. But the correct facts on ground, Yvonne, is that there are 200 doctors in Kenya who have been waiting to be employed since November 2016. There are another 1,250 waiting to be employed in the course of this year. How then do you explain the entry of 500 doctors? Now, when we were negotiating the return to work formula, this was not part of the things that they should have brought this on the table. That was, it's called good faith. I want to prevail and request Dr. Cleophas Mailu to read the word good faith and consultation, because he should have brought this on the table so that then we can understand where it's coming from. Why do we need 500? Tanzania has more problems than we have. Yes.
Senator, we're made to understand that in Tanzania there's been a freeze on hiring of doctors at the moment, and that these are doctors who aren't in any gainful employment in Tanzania and would be useful to us. The counter argument would be, well, why not? Kenya does need more doctors, and this would definitely help towards boosting the numbers in our patient-doctor ratio.
I was explaining before you interrupted me, Yvonne, that we have 200 doctors who have been waiting since November 2016. We have another 1,250 who will qualify for employment in the course of the year. So ideally, there should have been an explanation. Is the 500 on top of the ones they're going to hire in the year? Because the same freeze that is applicable in Tanzania is the same freeze that have been applicable in Nairobi.
Senator,
so therefore, ideally,
Senator, that number has been disputed.
They should have explained that they have lifted the freeze.
All right, Senator, that number has been disputed not just by the ministry, but we also heard from the State House spokesman yesterday who talked about the fact that the 1,400 doctors who are waiting to be hired is not a correct figure, and that all doctors are immediately absorbed from medical school.
It's not a fact. I have a good friend of mine working in Wote. That gentleman will not be hired because he's not even sure. What you are not also aware that they are not telling you is that there's been a general lull in the hiring of doctors across the country, because governors have introduced some other parameters of hiring doctors, to the extent, therefore, that people cannot go to countries that are not necessarily layers through mother tongue. That's so, it's not true that people are absorbed automatically. Otherwise, the 200 who are waiting should have been employed. The current KMPDU will tell you, and it would have been nice to ask them this question, because they have the facts on file, that you have that problem. And in the return to work formula that was signed recently, the government agreed to hire 1,200 doctors per year. Now, is the 1,200 inclusive of the 500 from Tanzania? Did we get to a point where we need to hire expertise? Those are facts on file, and therefore it's a question of lack of information. It's called uberima fidei in legal terms. It's a lack of good faith.
All right, okay. All right, Senator, thank you for that. Philip, let's bring you in. I spoke to the Tanzanian Medical Association president-elect. I asked him what they're willing to do. They say they're not willing to confront the government at this point, but would highly advise against this move to bring the 500 doctors. I'm posing the same question to you. What happens next? What are you prepared to do? What should happen? Should we just allow the 500 doctors to come in? Do you have any plans to ask for this suspension or stop it in any way?
Yvonne, I think the writing is on the wall. Both the Tanzanian doctors and the Kenyan doctors expressed some reservation about the timing. As my colleague Senator has said, 1,400 interns are coming on stream in 2 months. By then, the CBA and all of the other documentation will have been signed. The profession as a whole, from the Kenya Medical Association, the union, and the ministry, can then sit down and examine what are the additional needs. Short of that, it's somehow clear that the government is trying to use the idea of Tanzanian doctors as some sort of threat to the Kenyan doctors, that if they carry on in the manner that they have carried on, using the union to better their rights, there will always be somebody unemployed somewhere in the world who can take their job. But we also need to look at the Tanzanian situation. The Tanzanian doctors have said they are short over 2,400 doctors. We should be sitting down with Tanzania and asking how they can be helped.
Okay.
It shouldn't just be a question of the richer neighbor pulling in all the unemployment on that side to the detriment of our brothers in Tanzania.
Okay.
In other words, this should be a far more consultative process.
All right, far more consultation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on Monday Night News tonight. We'll continue to see how this story unfolds. Philip Murgor, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., I thank you both for your time on Monday Night News tonight. I want to remind you of our big question. We're asking you whether the government should suspend the recruitment of doctors from Tanzania. Should the Kenyan government suspend the recruitment of doctors from Tanzania? Send in your thoughts. 22155 is the SMS number. At KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. On Twitter, the hashtag is Monday Night News. I'm seeing your feedback. I will get to it in just a few short moments. But for now, you're watching Monday Night News. We want to take a break. We have more news coming up for you, including the battle for Nairobi. A new opinion poll is out. We have the numbers for you. Stay with us.